So, how did Mom and I end up in the back of a police cruiser? Let's talk about that and the spiritual events around it. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Spirit Made Me Do It. I am so happy to have you here. Thank you so very much for your time. I appreciate it. I just want to talk about what happened while I was in Florida. Well, on my way home from Florida. As some of you know, my mom and I flew down to Florida a couple weeks ago to close on her house down there and to move her back home, which was fine. But as soon as I heard that this was something that we were going to do, I just did not feel right. I just had a bad feeling about it. And it was just a feeling of dread. It wasn't incredible dread, but it was just the feeling like, I don't know if I want to do this. But I went. I flew down with my mom. We spent time going to some of the places that she loved to go to, and we packed up her house and we got everything ready, and she signed the papers. And last Sunday we started our drive home. Sunday, everything was beautiful. Everything went so well. Everything was packed up nicely. We got to the hotel that we were going to. We got there within 9 hours. I only drove 9 hours that day. Made it from Florida to North Carolina. Stayed at a nice Hampton Inn. Everything was fine. Everything went very well. We only had to stop once for a bathroom break, which can be a miracle when you got two women of a certain age driving around. But everything was going really, really great. Monday morning, when we got up for our last leg of our journey, just before I woke up, when I was kind of in that twilight place where you're like half asleep but not really asleep, I saw a policeman and I saw him directing traffic away from an accident. And I told my mom about it, and I had that feeling of dread again. But there wasn't a whole heck of a lot you can do. I mean, we can't stop what we're doing just because we feel like something bad is going to happen or something might go wrong. So you just kept going. So we got in the car and I got behind the wheel, and we leave North Carolina, and we start our journey. And all of a sudden I kept hearing and feeling at the same time, put your seat back, put your seat back. And I tried to move my seat back and I couldn't because we had so much stuff packed into this caravan. And I said, I can't move it back. And then I started having this feeling, and I knew I knew there was going to be an accident. I knew we were going to be an accident. I didn't know how bad it was going to be. I didn't know anything about it, but I knew that it was unavoidable, that this was something that was supposed to happen for whatever reason. And I'm still not quite sure of the reason, but whatever the reason, this was something that was supposed to happen. So I accepted it. I went inside to my heart space and I said, okay, whatever it is, it's for the highest and the best for all involved, and whatever happens, I will accept. And then I let go of it. I didn't really feel fearful. I just felt like we can't stop this. Don't resist it. Just go with it. So I continued driving, and I drove for about 10 or 15 minutes. And all of a sudden, I felt as though I had been drugged. I felt disoriented. I felt like I couldn't stay focused on the road. I really felt like I should not be driving at this time. So at the safest point, I pulled over, and my mom and I switched positions. My mom started to drive. And we kept having to pull over using the restrooms, which was crazy because the day before we stopped one time the whole trip. But it felt like everything was being put into place. I kept feeling that. Whenever we'd pull over, I'd see my numbers. My numbers are 1s and 4s, any combination of 1s and 4s. As soon as my mom got into the car and started driving, a truck pulled in front of us, and the numbers on the truck were like 1440110 or something like that, but it was all 4s and 1s and a couple of zeros thrown in for good measure. So I felt a little bit comforted by that. So we had to pull over again. And we pulled into this place called Love's. And it's like a convenience store, but it also has showers and stuff for truck drivers. And I was in the ladies' room and I heard the announcement. Customer 14, your shower is ready. Please proceed to shower 4. 144. My numbers again. When we got back into the car, I noticed that the car that was parked next to us had a license plate that had 144 on it as well. So I was like, okay, it's going to be okay. Whatever's going to happen is going to be fine. So I really was able to release any anxiety that I had about it at that time. We're carrying on, driving. We hit Maryland. And we're probably about halfway through Maryland. And I was like, Mom, we need to pull over again. So we pulled over. We went in the wrong direction. And my mom was going to kind of make a U-turn. There was a big driveway that was like right in front of us that led up to a storage facility. And it was really big. It was really quite something. There was like this big half moon in front of the driveway, and then you'd walk up this big long driveway, or you would drive up that big long driveway, and there was a really nice storage facility there. So we kind of pull into that half moon, and Mom turns to go to turn around, and the car that was coming our way did not see us, and we did not see the car. And there was a collision. Thank God no one was hurt. I mean, you know, whiplash stuff, but no one was really hurt. So we wait for the police to show up, and the police show up, and it is this young woman. And let me tell you, she was spectacular. She came up with confidence, and she made us feel like everything was going to be fine, everything was going to be taken care of. Thank you so much, Officer Scott. You were incredible. And but it wasn't the police officer that I saw. So I was a little in my vision, I guess you would call it, that I had that morning. It wasn't a police officer because the one I saw was male. And wouldn't you know, here comes another cruiser, and it's the same guy. It's the guy I saw. So I knew, okay, everything's going to be fine. Nobody's hurt. This was pretty much the worst of it. Or so I thought. So the reason that we pulled over to begin with was because I needed to use the ladies' room, and I still needed to use the ladies' room. So I walk up this big safe, up to this big storage facility. I walk up this big driveway, and it has these beautiful trees there that are, have like a little cement wall going around them, and it just was really, really pretty. And so I went up and I used the facility, and they were really fantastic there too. They offered to drive me back down because they saw the accident. And I was like, no, I'll walk. So I'm walking down the driveway, and don't I trip and fall right on the cement surrounding like the area that held the trees. And I landed on my ribs. And let me tell you something, I really hurt myself. That was painful. So I get up and we continue to talk to the police and have everything taken care of. It's time for us to go, and Officer Scott offered to drive us to a hotel that was nearby, and she drove us to a Hampton Inn. She went a little further and drove us to a Hampton Inn because we like Hampton Inns. So that's how we ended up in the back of the police cruiser. So I thought it was kind of a fun selfie to take with my mom in the back of a police cruiser. So that's how we ended up in the back of the police cruiser. The rest of the trip, we didn't do anything that night. We went back to the hotel. We went to the hotel, and we got inside. I tried to straighten things out in my head, figure some things out. How are we going to do this? We need to rent a big car that's going to hold all of her stuff, and it was a whole big thing. The next morning, first thing, After we had breakfast, my mom and I went back to the room, and I'm making calls, and nobody had cars. It was crazy. No, if they did have a car, it needed to be returned back to that location, which we were in Maryland. We were not about to drive all the way home and then drive back to drop a car off. We would have to have it for a couple of days. So I finally asked someone, I was like, what do you recommend? Nobody has any cars. What can we do? And somebody said, go to the airport. And they had a car for us. And let me tell you, it was a Chevy Suburban. And this thing was a road yacht. It was huge, had all the bells and whistles. So we leave the airport with this huge vehicle. And then I had to go, and we had to go to where they towed the car. We had to move everything from one car to the other. So I did that. I took care of that. And then we headed home. And this car, it was like driving a couch. It was so comfortable. All the bells and whistles, had little lights in the corners so that if a car was coming near you and it wouldn't be safe to move into that lane, it tells you that the car's there. I mean, it was fantastic. And for a big car, I still felt very comfortable driving home. We didn't get home until about 11 o'clock that night, and it was a long, hard couple of days. But that's the story as to how we ended up in the cruiser. And that's also the story telling you all of these things that I've talked about before. What you resist persists. If you know something's going to happen, relax into it. If you're going through something bad, accept it, relax into it, and it goes by quicker, it goes by easier. But also listening to your intuition, really what you feel. Really pay attention to those things. But I'm going to tell you, because I've had experiences before when things were going to happen and I got cues, I got signs from my guides and whatnot. And when it's something that's kind of serious like this, it really comes through a lot more clearly to me. So I'm ever so grateful for the warnings from my guides so I could be at least somewhat mentally prepared. Whenever I get something from my guides that's important, when I hear a voice, it's usually not in my voice. This time it was in my voice, which is kind of good. That tells me that my communications are getting better and better with my guides, because now I don't need to hear it in a different voice to understand it's coming from someplace else. So that's my story. It's been a heck of a couple of weeks. I am so grateful to be here. I am so grateful that my mom is safe. I am so grateful that Sharina, the young woman who was in the accident with us, was not injured. She was a beautiful young woman. She just had an interview. I hope she got that job. But yeah, that's my story. But so listen to your guides is the point. Listen, pay attention. And if something's coming up and you know it, don't resist it. Relax into it and say, okay, I trust you. And trust and have faith. This is just an experience, guys. Take care.